you analysing what happened when you did day 9. So look at basically the correlation, the co-creation, and how you can integrate what works, what's working already, which was what we talked about yesterday with the frameworks and the tools, your habits that you have, and how you can habit stack things. But what is working and what it can work with. So I want to talk a little bit more about different types of framework and different tools. I mentioned yesterday things like habit stacking. So taking an existing thing that you do and adding this habit onto something that you already do. So adding the task that you want to do and the thing that you're working through to transform. So I'm using exercises. It's a great one to think about for time management, and where you can fit that in and slot that in time. So think about the structures, and I've mentioned this in previous video, of your day and how your day is structured. So for example, my day is broken down as a mum, and as I mentioned before, so school run is something that's generally in mainstream time. That's something that happens, and pick up. So that breaks down the day. A lot of people, it's their food, so their breakfast, lunch and dinner. So if you're working with weight management, and actually it doesn't matter if it is to do with weight and exercise, you can add this as a framework for things like study. So when I have my lunch, I will do 5 minutes, or if it's to read more, to learn more, to start understanding finances and the structures within economics and stuff, if money and something that you are wanting to transform, how can you add the thing that you want to learn to help transform into the day? So this is the way that you can do that. So 5 minutes after breakfast, 5 minutes at lunch. I tagged my learning with lunch. So for me, I used to have a habit of that when I sat and ate lunch, because I'm working from home, I would stick the TV on, or I'd stick something on in the background and like to eat with. So what I did to shift that when I wanted to transform out of that, but to keep it the same, because that was working, that was something I enjoyed doing as well, and to keep it in the thing that works for me, linking that with learning meant that instead of watching a TV program, I would then slot a video from my training in there. Or the way I see it, and my little tag for that is like what I'm putting into my mind and what I'm putting into my body. So I would like to listen to podcasts while I'm having lunch, or put something on that I'm studying or I'm working through. So say my members that month have asked me a question about something, and I'm researching, and I'm going to use the one that I'm doing for myself at the moment is teeth and bones, and the Chinese medicine and stuff with my studying behind that. So I started researching, and I'd watch videos that's to do with bone generation, reconstruction of the remineralization, and what that type of information, if it's even possible, and research, and what the peer-reviewed studies are. So that's where I would slot that in from my lunch, and I would give myself an assigned lunch hour. So I would then have a chunk of my day that was about studying, that was then also tagged with what I'm putting into my body, what I'm putting into my mind. So that's one framework that you can use. If you are working in an office and maybe you only take half an hour for lunch, maybe that doesn't feel right to you, but maybe in the evening and you're on your downtime, that's the time that you do it. Or maybe you are exercise already, you go for a run, you can play a podcast whilst you're running. That's where you can tag that framework in, and you can add that for your time. So think about what it is that you're using and how you can add that into the structure of your day, and then you've accountability for when you're actually doing it, and you've set those times. What I suggest when doing this is look at when you worked through your day yesterday, and obviously if you're doing this with over the weeks, when we're doing it in the 12-week, you can look at it on a lot better scale, because you can play around with it. hence why I've kind of given you a few days. So don't be too rigid about how you work through. So day 8, for example, you might spend 3 days on. Choose, assign and set what you are going to do though. Be specific with your goals, be intentional with your goals. Integrating with what already works is basically what today is about. So think about, as I said in day 8, what's working and how you can elaborate and expand on that. Now I want you to expand even more with the new things that you've experimented with yesterday. What didn't work? What worked? Take the things that work and expand them again, integrate them into structures that are already existing. What would be another example for finances? Maybe think of something other than exercise to share with you. If you are thinking about money, for example, can you, every time you buy something, put a little bit away? Or instead of buying that coffee that you may spend that £5 a week, is what I always say, for the price of coffee, you can become a member. So if you've gone into whichever, I'm not going to, it's the brand, coffee brands out there, and you've bought yourself a little snack and a coffee, could you swap that for, instead of spending that, take something healthy if you're working on your diet, and so you're putting something in, so you take something from home, and instead of seeing, oh well, that's my treat, say instead I'm going to swap that and treat myself with a membership, for example. That's the price of the coffee a month, or that's a class for once a month, for example. I know the price I think I charge for my monthly founding members is similar to the price it is for one class, exercise class. So that could be your thing, and it doesn't have to be an everyday thing. I think people, one of the things I learned when I was trying to slim down in preparation for my wedding that never happened in 2020, I used to say to myself, oh, if I hadn't done my hours exercise, then it meant I wouldn't do it. Oh, I haven't got time. I haven't got an hour to work out for an hour, and I want to do an hour workout because that's my workout. And that's my perspective of what a workout is. And it wasn't until I learned about Tabata and HIIT sessions, I started to kind of initially think, oh, well, I suppose I could do this. And then it would be too intense. And because I hadn't done anything, and then I'd go and do that, I'd find it. But I realised along those thinkings, it wasn't quite, I was still in the old mindset, which is what we're shifting out of. And this is where the key to our transformation, as we spoke about in, what day was it? Perspective in day 1, how we can bring in perspective and make different subtle shifts can really make a difference. Because what I realized was, okay, for example, for part of my training, I have like a 30-day really basic thing that I have to do for 30 days before I can move on to the next bit. And if I missed one day, I have to restart. This was what I was telling myself. If I missed one day, I had to restart, because it was about building up the energy, and I wanted to do that 30 days with consistency. And I started to realize, actually, then I've stopped doing my own consistency because I've put that in place, and I'm trying to do and fit in a structure that's not working for me. It doesn't fit. So how can I change it so I'm still doing what I need to do? And movement. And I went back to what was working, which is doing it a little bit each day. Now, I do the hour because the hour was working for me in the morning, but because what I was doing, instead of doing an hour exercise or half an hour meditation and trying to think all affirmations in, all these things that you want to do, and you think, oh yeah, this is really good, but how do I fit it all in? How do I make sure I do my ceremonies, make sure I follow this and this goal setting and this, and then there's too much, and then that's overwhelming in itself. And most people can't do all that. So how do I do that? I combine it. So I put my meditation with my movement, and then I added my affirmations in that. I realized I was needing to channel every day. That's become part of the sessions, which is what we do. So there are other things that I do once a week, like the meditation, that's more than in depth. And then before sleep, I've got my little 5 minutes of, as I go to sleep, I'm connecting with my breath. I'm connecting and I'm choosing to look at that routine, as I've said before, to prepare me for the next day. Now, we're all human. There's going to be days where maybe you're up late and you're out, for example, and you're doing stuff and you come back and you just haven't done those things. The key here is not to let yourself berate yourself. It's to go, okay, so what can I do? What have I done? And this is where I think it's important. Same with the choices. Okay, you gave in, you had that, I don't know, mince pie. I had a vegan mince pie. Got the boxes, they've gone okay. But what that means is, okay, well, I've done that this week, or that I've done that today. A lot of people go, oh, well, I've had that mince pie, I might as well, or I've had that glass, I might as well just have more now because I failed. It's that mindset of I failed. And actually, I'm going to bring this up because I think this is really important. And I think I shared this about a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. If we can get it to work. Maybe. Yeah, let's just go to here. Right. So, is it here? I'm sure I shared it on here. Yeah. So fixed mindset, we avoid the challenges if we're fixed. We're shy away from things that we don't know. I don't know how to do that, so I won't do it. And this comes up time and time again. So this is when we're integrating and we're starting to co-create with different ways, different frameworks, different people that we may not entirely understand even. We may not necessarily know the way that person thinks. And this may be alien. We're stepping outside that box. So it's that taking that leap of faith and trusting that actually it's a little bit of Captain Marvel here. If any of you have seen that movie, one of the things about the movie that I love is that she's the one that falls over, and a part of it is that her trainer keeps telling her, like, you're only human, you keep falling, you keep failing, you're weak, failure is weak. One of the things and the difference between someone that succeeds and someone that doesn't is that one that succeeds might have failed 500 times, but they're the person that from each of those failures, they thought, what didn't work? What can I learn? What can I learn from this? So what are the structures that didn't work yesterday that you're experimenting? What didn't work? What can you learn? What have you learned? For starters, you've learned that's not the one, possibly, or maybe there was an aspect of that. Why didn't it work? When you start asking the why, then you start to unpick the why, you start to learn, and that's part of the integration process. Like Captain Marvel, she gets up when she falls down. She's constantly getting up and pushing herself to do harder. When you see those montage of her childhood, and it's the same thing when we can work with my notes here. So co-creation, integration. So for me, written things were a challenge. So I've used tools and structures. So I use video instead. I will use talk and type because I've certainly got lots to say. I'm sure you're aware. So doesn't give up easily when you've got a growth mindset, as opposed to the fixed mindset, just give up. Okay, it doesn't work. I'm not going to bother. Why should I bother? It's that defeatist attitude. Believes failure is the limit of ability. Oh, I failed. It means I'm not good enough. I failed the test. There's no point taking it again. That doesn't mean I don't add up to muster. That's a fixed mindset. Most people, in fact, there's studies have shown that those that when they do mock exams in schools and then they take the real exams, those that pass their mocks, or it's those that fail their mocks, generally do better than those that pass their mocks. The ones that fail will try that extra mile. They want to go and work harder. So when it comes to the actual exam, they push more. Whereas the others, oh, I was fine, I've got this, and blah, blah, and let it go and coast a little bit. So my abilities are unchallenged and changing. So no, I don't know. I only know how to use this. It's like an older person saying, well, I don't know how to work computers. Well, I know people that retrained an amazing guy in his like 60s who's learning how to use computers. He's rewriting the books on loads of stuff. So age is not a defining factor, sex is not a defining factor, actually ability is not a defining factor, because if you then look at where your strengths are and play to those strengths, you can work around and use tools, and adaptability is really important with that. So when frustrated, gives up. Now I'd say with this, there's a subtle difference if frustrated, not to give up, but to walk away, do something else, channel it, come back to it. It's whether you come back to it afterwards. There's no harm in if you're frustrated, it's not working, because then you're actually actively aware the energy's not there, it's not in flow. So then you move and you do something else. So what that growth mindset and how you can add that into this is the challenges help you grow. You can learn anything that you want to do if you put your mind to it with your will. If it's something that interests you, you're going to do it. It may take time, but all in incrementations. The law of incrementation is really important when it comes to transformation, and the ability to look and reflect on who we are, where we've been, what we're doing, what's working, what's not, and then analysis, and that a mental analysis of what is there. And that's where resilience in adversity and the strong mental fortitude comes in. The abilities can develop and grow, knowing that you can develop on this. What you experimented in day 9 or subsequent days with working with what you were experimenting yesterday, develop them through today. So it's more of like, you've got this, day 10, before we move into the values and understanding your own values tomorrow. But look for the positive in every situation. And it's not meaning to be all love and light, because that goes into spiritual bypassing when we do that. It's actually about looking at the shadows, looking at the areas that are failing, and asking, how can we do it differently? How can it's working, but how can we improve on it? Is a different way. Another, I think that's from what's the scientist in Waganda? I can't remember her name. It's about that. Just because it works doesn't mean we can't like make it work even better, or take that idea and kind of grow with it, because it's already there. So existing things that are already there for you that are working, how can you then integrate the things you want to shift? Maybe it's something in your relationships, for example. If you are someone that's looking about wanting to change aspects and wanting to meet a love person, so how can you integrate that into this? And we'll talk about that tomorrow. Actually, I think we're going to more bless me. Bless you. But this comes into what I mentioned today about co-creation with other people, our relationships with other people. When we are more open and willing to see people, we start to see, I've always seen the good in people. If we always look for the bad in people, we're always going to see the bad. So then you can see where people's strengths are. If you are working with a team, then you can let those people play to those strengths. That doesn't mean that you overlook when things aren't being done properly, but that you take action to put things in place for those structures to shift things, to change things, to go, okay, why is it not working? What is it about what's in place? What is it about the perspective, the ideas, the culture that's overlaid maybe in or within what is there that maybe needs readdressing, relooking? And that's part of our integration and our co-creation. Really important thing for change, not just for our personal lives, but actually with our business lives. Because if we take this into not just on a personal level, 12 days of transformation, yay me, I started to do my course, or I've started to lose a little bit of weight, I'm working on my relationship, I've started to think about my funding in a different way and learning in a different way with business. How we take that forward and put that mindset and that perspective, that new perspective, in everything we do, integrating it into where we are in groups, how we co-create with other people, how we come across, how we mix and marry that and integrate it into other areas of our life and our other family life. It doesn't mean you go around saying, right, you've got to do this video course that I did, or you need to change, but you start to recognize the patterns, and how you see and reflect that in your life will start to reflect that in other lives around you, because you lead by example. And you also start to see a shift and a change in how people relate to you. Now, sometimes there's a little bit of a trigger that comes up, because that may not always go down well with everyone, but that will show up where things weren't working. And then that's, again, you take it back into that willingness to think on the long term, how, like we talked about in day 3, how you can integrate this slowly over time, not just for this 12 days, how that build on those small little steps. My dad doesn't eat elephants, but he calls it elephant eating, and it's the biggest lesson I learned from him. When there's a mammoth task, you can't eat the mammoth all in one go, but it's a little bit piece by piece, integration, law of integration, having that task of, okay, well, where do I start first? Maybe it's the little pebbles that we spoke about. We got all those out of the way. So, right, we've got this big one. We're going to spend an hour on that one. So time is relevant, but also it's a big one. How can I focus time management as opposed to hourly management? Yes, that might take me a whole few days, so I can't do it all in one go. But what I can do is make sure every day for 10 minutes a day. So you've got a whole room to sort out in the house. I'm going to work on one drawer a day. I can tackle that drawer now. There's 10 minutes, go through that pile of paperwork now. Maybe the paperwork takes longer. I'm going to do one piece at a time, one evening, one day, and slowly, piece by piece, you can work on that. Now, I've spent far too long, as these are meant to be a lot shorter, but hopefully I've given you lots of food for thought. Let me know in the comments below if you have any questions. Love and blessings. I will see you today later as for the recording for day 11. Thank you for your time. Please like and share if you are enjoying this, and I invite you to join us if you want to go in more depth.